Hello everyone,
Hey.
welcome back for a coding design system with a new episode, finally, with Jonas. Hello Jonas, how are you?
How are you doing? I'm doing great.
Hey, I'm well too. It's really nice to have you on stream today because we were supposed to have an episode last week and finally, due to some technical issue, we had to postpone it a bit. But we are here and this is now.
Finally here.
Finally. So it's nice to have you. For people who don't know you, you're a CTO in a company working on a product named kickstartDS, and this is what we're gonna cover today. And you are in the web environment and front end and so on for a while. So could you give us some insights on who you are and what you do on your daily basis?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Jonas, as you said. I'm the founder for kickstartDS, but before that, we've also worked on the web, of course. And that was creating mainly websites for other companies. So a typical agency business, you can say. So we started with that in, I think, 2008 officially. We've done some small stuff with the core group of people before that too, for 2 to 3 years, I think. But 2008 was when we officially started the agency and started working for local clients mainly, getting bigger, getting more employees, getting bigger clients. So in the end, we had, I think, 20 people in 2 locations here in Bonn and in Cologne. We had offices, and we've built, those CMS-based projects, PHP-based projects for our clients. And front-end was always a big thing in that, as you can imagine. Everything needs a front-end in the end. We've always tried to make really good front-end work, and that means you can't repeat yourself in every project. So pretty early on, we started reusing those components and just improving them from project to project. And this is what I think it's 1.5 years ago, roughly, we decided, let's focus on that, because that was always our passion. It's where we invested most of our time. And we saw that the agency business itself is a bit tiring after a while. You really prefer to work on something that has more long-lasting value, that is the product kickstartDS itself for us, but also what people build with kickstartDS is meant to be long-lived. And that is something that's really refreshing to us, because at least in my opinion, way too much code gets thrown out in relaunches still today, without good reason.
Yeah.
Just because you have always done it like that. So you do it like that again. You get your new Photoshop layout and off you go. But I don't think it should be like that. So, and I think that's where we share a lot of ideology with Backlight, for example, too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Is it something that you started to do on your PHP project at first, starting building reusable blocks, and that finally leads to the front end ecosystem?
Absolutely, yeah. It has a pretty long history, starting, I'd say, with your next guest next week, Brett Frost. He was pretty important for us, because we pretty early on followed his method of structuring front end, like building atoms, building molecules, organisms, and going from there. And we've done that with Pattern Lab. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Oh, for sure.
Pretty much the before storybook.
Yeah, that's it. Been there, done that.
Yeah. We've used that a lot in the past, and we've always been pretty unsatisfied with it, because it's pretty interwoven with your way of programming. It's not really just a way to look at components. You really have to understand the coding side of it, and then it makes sense. But that was what we used before. And if you've used that before, you can define JSON files in Pattern Lab. So you just describe which parameters should be set inside your components. So you have a template and you have these JSON files, and you just create all your variants as JSON files. This is what we've done before kickstartDS, and that was a pretty big code base already, even way bigger than kickstartDS is today. We had real estate views in there, e-commerce views in there. It's a lot of stuff that we haven't really touched again since then, because we focused on the main stuff for now. But there we had those JSON files, and those are pretty much the precursor to what we do today, because we just took those JSON files and wrote JSON schema for them. So we just wrote the structure. It was already there. We just wrote it for it. And this is what we use today to generate stuff for your headless CMS, for your TypeScript types. All that is based on our JSON schema, but in the end, it's just the same thing we've done for, I think, almost 10 years now.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about kickstartDS. The idea behind it, and how did you start to work on it? We mentioned that you were involved in components and so on, but what were the premise of this new design system?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw for us, that it makes super sense to have something ready to go, to not start with 0%, but start with maybe 60%, 70%, depends on the project, but it makes much more sense for us, so it should make much more sense for others too. That's mainly the base assumption, that others are having the very same challenges, and that's what we've seen when we've talked to people too, that they echo that those are problems that prop up everywhere. You always have to build a button and you don't really like building a button again. So what we've tried is really distilling those components that are needed in every project down to those components you have in kickstartDS today that can serve as that basis to start. I think when you switch into the storybook, I think you can just type storybook after the URL. And
let me show that.
I think it's much more illustrative because the marketing page is nice and all, but especially the people watching this will probably want to see code anyway. How it actually works. So if you go into the button here, for example, I mean, we have a lot of components in here already. So you see at the top, you have the components that we use for our own marketing site. This is the first section, the big section up top. And then below that, you have the core dependencies that we use inside our design system. So we ourselves obviously use kickstartDS for our web page. So this is why you have those in here. And if you, for example, click on the button under kickstartDS-based, I think, you will see it's an unstyled button, more or less unstyled.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you now scroll up again and you open the button that's inside the main module for our marketing page, this is the one consuming the button below and just parameterizing it. So one interesting thing you could see if you just quickly go back to the button in kickstartDS.
Yeah. Oh, let me show. Yeah.
Okay, the controls are not working. That's a pity. Yeah, I think there's some problem in storybook composition.
Yeah, maybe.
But the interesting thing would be to see that the button here doesn't have some attributes that we have in our own button. So if we go back to our own button up top, you will see there are some options in those controls, like I think deco is one.
Okay.
So there you have highlighted and deco. Those are customizations we've added on top of the button just for our design. They make no sense for other people, but that's the way we see people using this. Hence the white labeling. You take what's there and you really make it yours. And it should be open to do that at every junction. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you consider it? Is this some kind of base design system that you inherit in advanced design system dedicated to build advanced product, like different tiers of different pieces of your final design system?
Yeah, exactly. You would just use this as a tool to have the foundation for your design system. And then you have some different things you would do. For example, you would have the design application. You'd go in there and actually declare all those tokens that you have in your design system. So we're super big on tokens. We use Style Dictionary to generate the resulting CSS properties that are used here. And those tokens are the mainstay, I'd say, in regards to branding and design and layout. So that would be one thing you do. That's one thing you need to do because otherwise it just won't look good. But other than that, you could just get your first website with that. You have the colors, you have the base components, and if that's enough for you, you really only need the default button and the default hero element. Then you can just quickly create your first web page with it. We have some connectors, for example, and the Gatsby theme that enable you to just quickly plug and play more or less your components into the CMS solution.
It's interesting because it's far beyond just the concept of a themable components library, It's not like just having a bunch of different components that you'd be ready to apply some kind of colors, some kind of theme features and so on. This is really something more complex and more deep in the way you are structuring your application by defining some parts and enriching them only if you need to. So, so is it something that you consider as the killer feature of kickstartDS? Do you know any other product that are doing this?
Not currently, to be honest. We've looked for this quite a bit, but we see a real gap here because there's a lot of tooling around this stuff, but not much in the way of concrete component libraries that you can really take advantage of. Of course, there's stuff like Chakra or Material UI, but those are, on the one hand, very heavyweight, often too heavyweight for marketing pages, which, to be fair, is our main pitch currently. I mean, we're really strong for marketing context because that's our past. That's where our experience lies. So that's our main thing. But yeah.
Okay. And how did you start with this concept? Is it something that you revamped from scratch again and again before coming to this final architecture, or is this something that you had in mind at first? What are your inspiration to start with this concept?
I think this is the more or less third generation of kickstartDS we're looking at today. So in the past, I've already told about how this started. That would be more or less the first version. We had stuff like handlebars in there and those old legacy technologies when you're looking from today. And then we've rewritten this in React. This was in the early stages of starting following the idea to create a startup. So this is when we saw that handlebars is just not modern enough and leaves too much on the table in regards to Jamstack architectures. We could always generate HTML, and we do that today. You don't have to use React with kickstartDS. That might be interesting too, because we just use React as a templating library. The JavaScript that gets progressively enhanced is written completely in isolation to that in ES6. You just import it in your site, and you can copy-paste the HTML markup if you want in the storybook. You don't need a React runtime. And that's what's super important to us too, because we don't want to burden everyone with using React, because for a lot of cases, it's just not correct to use React as a client framework. Mm-hmm. At least if you're asking me or if you're asking us, a marketing page shouldn't run a React context. It's just not necessary. It's something different when you're talking about a single page app or application, stuff like that, or internal network stuff. This is all super sensible to do in React or in Vue.js or Svelte, whatever your flavor is. But when you're building static content, when you're building marketing content, performance is king, and you really shouldn't deliver anything else than HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in the end.
Yeah, for sure. This is also something really, really powerful with the web platform by itself, is that you don't have to stick to a given technology, except for the fundamentals pillars that are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But except from that, you are ready to use any kind of frameworks, any kind of technologies that you prefer, and not being constrained by your design system, architecture, or product, and so on. This is something very important
to us, because you always have projects that can't just quickly change to React or that can't be rewritten. You have to be able to integrate HTML into some backend. However arcane it might be, you will have that moment sooner or later. And when your design system breaks on that, that will not be a good sign for the consumer of it, because he will then still have to find his own solution, and the great design system didn't help him, and he'll remember that, and it will be a bad impression. So yeah, that's something we've said from the start. You have to be able to use it without a specific framework too. But it's much harder. I mean,
yeah,
you have to be transparent about it. Integrating HTML, I think nobody likes it. It's a menial task. You always have to check it. You have to reintegrate. You have to continuously quality assured. It's a really nobody likes that job, I think.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a complex task, and it's interesting because I'm convinced this is definitely the future of building web platform and web products. When you see some new runners like Astro being able to generate static pages given a bunch of different frameworks, and it doesn't matter. It's just generate itself aside and render in front, and this is definitely where we're going to. So having something totally agnostic in terms of design system, allowing you to unplug underlying technologies and putting them put another one in front of them. It's it's definitely probably the best way to be future proof.
Yeah, that was just what I was going to say. It's just future proofing.
That's
and
it.
HTML is the standard. We always should land on standards in the end, if you're asking me. So, because this gives us the longevity, the long-lasting solution that we're propagating here. If you just have to delete everything in 2 to 3 years anyways, then this makes no sense, what we're proposing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so it's the third revision, more or less, of kickstartDS, and it was not a solution that fell from the heavens ready. We had to fix a lot of stuff to get it to here, but as I've said, we've used it for 1.5 years now with pilot customers, and it was pretty successful in those projects. So we're pretty confident in that. I think I'm lagging a bit.
Yeah, just a bit, but I guess it's okay.
Okay, well, it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So
okay, perfect.
It's not the first iteration, and it for sure won't be the last either.
Yeah. It's always the same thing. When we talk with Thomas Almer about the Lion design system they are building at ENG, he told me, I really like the story. He told me about the button, and he said we revamped the button 4 times because building a correct button the right way with proper accessibility and so on, it's damn complex. So we had to revamp it from scratch 4 times. And that's it. It's a never-ending story, You are always.
To be honest, he is in a privileged position. He can invent it 4 times. The normal developer invents it just 1 time, and then he lives with it, and then it just won't be accessible, and that's not a good situation, I think.
Yeah, you're right. So let's dig a bit into the code. What do you think about it?
Yeah,
let's talk about kickstartDS, and let's see, because you have prepared some kind of workflow, so let's see what we're able to do with kickstartDS. So we're back in Backlight with a new design system dedicated to kickstartDS. It's a totally blank one. So I don't have set up anything at all. So you tell me, what am I supposed to do to start everything and craft everything from scratch?
Yeah, I think the first thing you'd need is our dependencies themselves. So quickly...
Oh, damn. Another will of death.
Here. Oh yeah, we do have a chat.
Yeah, we have.
So if you look in the chat, if that works, you could add those 2 dependencies first.
So let me check that. So I'm sorry, wait just a second. I guess my brother is just stuck. So it's always the same thing, Okay, so let's be back here and let's do something like that. We will play an adventurous way by running in Firefox. Those guys are professional. Yeah, it's a modern browser. But sometimes, Chrome is starting to do some kind of magic at some points. So, yeah. Okay, so we said in the package JSON, I guess so I have to add some kind of dependencies.
Correct.
Yeah, you gave me so
that would be the main way you'd start using it, by just installing the core dependencies.
Yeah. So what do we have here? We have a kickstartDS core and a kickstartDS-based, which I guess are the basic components available. And what is the core dedicated to?
The core is dedicated to the main structural handling, I'd say. Stuff like how the style dictionary is managed, how common functionality is used. For example, we have a small pub/sub implementation for your client JavaScript to fire events and to evaluate events that are thrown inside of kickstartDS components, just as a small example. And that small pub/sub is inside the core, and you can just import it and use it in your own code to, for example, react to events that we fire, to fire our own events and stuff like that.
Okay, I see. Okay, great.
So just the shared stuff, I'd say. And then you have the base, which, as you said correctly, it's just the basic components we have. And we have some more packages, like a content package with more components that are specifically focused for those marketing pages. But I think for the start, base should be good.
Okay, nice. So after that, what's the next step for
maybe
adding some
one
kind of
word
component?
before anyone asks why we're using such a canary strange version, because I'm not sure that everyone has seen versions like this. It's just an artifact of our release process. So we're currently in the process of finishing up a big release. That's why you're seeing the 2.0. We're on 1. And so on currently, and we're working on a big release. That's, I'd say, the maybe 4th revision of kickstartDS, if you want.
Okay.
Because we've switched everything to style dictionary and to those CSS properties. So everything is managed in there. It's in a central place. And additionally, we completely moved away from media queries. So everything is done with container queries and polyfills now. Which is really nice for a component library because, I mean, you probably know how hard it can get to have components good looking in, for example, a 30% context column.
Yeah.
That can be
definitely
really hard. And that's super cool when you have container queries because you can really solve those problems. So those are the big 2 refactorings that we did. And because it's not completely 100%, it's not released yet on a final release. So we're using a pre-release here to look at that. Yeah, just a quick injection.
Perfect. So you tell me, what should be the next step?
Yeah, so I think next we could try the canonical button, right?
Yeah, for sure. The famous button. So I guess I'm creating a button component here. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
So inside that, you would just create a button TSX, for example.
Okay, let's do this. Okay.
And then you should be able to import the button from kickstartDS/base. So if you write import and...
Okay, so I could do an import button like this.
Exactly, correct, yeah. And
from kickstartDS-base.
Then it's /base and /lib/button.
Slash, you said, excuse
yeah, /lib, L-I-B.
Lib, yeah, /button. Perfect.
So we always try to directly import from the component, not from the index import. That's why this looks like this. And then I think we can already export. I think we should rename the button up top because we want to return our own button.
Yeah, for sure. So import button.
Let's just give it an alias.
Keys button.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
So we should be able to just export a button again.
Okay.
And then define that just as our button, imported button component.
So
I think it's export const.
Yeah, it's something like that. You're right.
And then it should be equals, I think, and we get some props.
Yeah. So tell me. Mm-hmm. I guess it's something like this that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I want to do no, not like this.
Yeah. This obviously won't do anything yet. So we, I think, need at least a doc site, right? Where we show that button to debug it.
You're right. So
Because I don't think it can work like that, to be fair. But
so
we should verify, I think, ourselves.
so let's create a story, I guess, to show it live. .tsx.
I mean, if you like, I can send you a code snippet again for the story, because
Yeah, perfect.
we actually found out that we can do that in a pretty cool way. I sent it to you on Discord because I'm not sure that the formatting will keep intact otherwise.
Yeah.
But you should be able to just drop this one in there. Because we already have stories defined and we have those published as part of the dependency too.
Yeah, for sure. Let me grab the snippet from your message directly. So, if I have a look at... Okay, so what do we have here? Okay, so we import... Okay, so you're defining... What do we have here? Button story is a template.
Yeah, the button stories are just re-exported stories we've already defined in kickstartDS itself that you can reuse to have the main variants automatically shown.
Okay.
And the template is the one you can use to add your own variants to it. You can use it by, I think, calling template bind and then just defining the arguments that you want to override in the story.
Okay.
And then it's just a default declaration on how that story should be called and rendered. Yeah.
Ooh, that's nice. Okay, so it's a way to finally have everything directly packed into the core design system and the base components, so you will be able to reuse and redecorate your stories directly for your design system.
Because we already have those stories.
Yeah.
Why should you be needed to re-implement all those stories again? Because you want to show the solid main too, of course.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm not sure why he's complaining about the import though.
Yeah, maybe it could be on our side. Or it's corresponding declaration. Probably missing types in TypeScript. So this is probably loading dynamically input in module. Something is maybe missing at some point.
Let me have a look. What could it be? Import is there. Is there some setting we need to make?
Let me have a look at npkg what is inside it. So it'd be nice to see it live too. So
I mean, it's possible that we maybe need to make some adjustments to the TS config.
Yeah,
not sure.
Maybe.
Because we've created a TypeScript component.
So we are in the version. This is the last canary version that we use. That's it.
Yeah, we're on the newest 9.22 release.
Yeah,
perfect. In there.
Yes, this is 9.22. You said. Oh, sorry, I didn't pick the right one. This is this one. Okay.
Yes.
So we have. And what we are looking for lib button and the button stories. Okay, and yes, they are here. So okay.
I think it might have to do with the TS config and the JSX configuration, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe just rename it as GS6 and use GS6 directly here. So it won't loading input in modules. So what is missing here?
Is he still complaining? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have installed the core. That's fine too.
Yeah, we do have access to the core. So for yeah, let me check. What do we have in core? So what is the path? Lib, storybook, helpers. Okay.
Yeah.
So lib, storybook, helpers. Okay, the module should be here. So is it something missing in my package.json file? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, let me have a look. Because I have a small example where I've tested this, just to be transparent.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it worked there, so we just have to see where it's breaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I've added React and React DOM to the dependencies. Maybe we just need that. Because we haven't actually told him that we're using React here.
Yeah, maybe we need to add React and React DOM.
Because in the small project I do have React and React DOM in here. So probably just
so let's import React and React DOM.
Yeah, and I'd go with 17.
Yeah, okay. Let's do
because
this.
I'm not entirely sure that 18 is tested well enough.
So we said 17. Okay.
I think that's probably it. Two output files.
This button stories index. Oh yeah, so this is my fault. This is because I renamed the file. So let me just delete it and recreate it. Okay. Oh, I may have some bug in Backlight.
Yeah, then just recreate the file again with a different name, or?
Yeah, the fact is, I probably don't renamed it properly, so this time should be the right one. So, loading the files, initializing the compilation token. It's like in whole times in the themes, you know. Oh my. So what is missing? We're loading dynamically imported module. Is there a module that I'm not importing properly?
I think I'm lagging behind a bit on the stream. Let me see.
Yeah. But maybe it's no, this one is not imported at all. So base button parameters. Let me check again in the base.
And do you have an error? I don't see an error currently.
In which one? Because right now I'm not importing my button, and the story is still complaining about a module that is missing. So let's import button from okay. And if I do something like this, I should be able to see something, I guess so. So I've got my story, but I don't have anything in it. Okay, I've got my story, but I don't have anything in it.
Yeah, but I think that's the start. Maybe we just need to use the template, because I think it's just not rendering the story right now. So if, for example, you add something like this, what I've sent you.
Okay. So
this would be the same as you did, just not by manually writing the single entry into there, but using the template function.
Okay, so in my story directly, that's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Below that, just replace the import button and the primary button. I think you can.
So let's do something like that. Okay.
So this should. Yeah, okay, that worked. Great.
We've got something.
So, yeah, so if you change the label, it should auto change, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
If I do something like that.
Yeah,
it
just
works.
to prove it.
Yeah.
It's not something baked in, although
Some kind of magic,
it's a party trick. Woo. Okay, no, that's the base setup, and that's how we envision people using those stories we've already developed, because you can just reuse that stuff in your own code base. Yeah, so we have a button now, but I think we're still missing a lot of stuff. For example, it's not styled correctly.
Yeah, you're right.
So we probably should create a small layout, I guess.
Okay, directly into my button.
That's a good question. I think we've always done the layout for the docs view. So we just created a layout for the docs view and added the main CSS and JS imports in there. It's just the main CSS file from the core, from the base module, I think it is.
Okay, so the idea is to import the CSS files directly from the base, and the idea is to inject them into our final application, which are our stories right now. Yeah. So maybe we can do something like adding a file in Backlight dedicated to that. So,
and I mean, I think I made it work by actually adding a storybook preview.js.
Yeah, that's it. I never remind the name of that file. So
I think it's stories.preview.js.
Stories.preview.js. That's it. You're right. Yeah. So it's a stories.preview.js. Perfect.
And you should be able to just import the needed files inside here.
Okay, so where are they?
kickstartDS /base again. And then it is libglobal.
kickstartDS-based.
Then /lib/global.
Global.
/base.js.
Base.js.
That's the main JS file, and then the same with base CSS. Just copy it.
Okay, same one for CSS.
Yes. So this should...
Okay.
This should have done something even if we can't see it, because what should have happened now is that some base styles are loaded. What is still missing are the correct tokens, because the button still has no background color, still has no text color correctly defined.
Yeah,
this
you're
is
right.
Because the tokens are missing. I think when you inspect the button right now in the story, you should see there is some CSS in there. It's just missing the correct tokens to reference.
Let me check.
At least I'd hope so.
So what do we have here? Yeah, we have a lot of tokens declared based on keys, the keys prefix, but they are obviously all missing right now. So
yeah, I mean, those are just the declarations, and it's missing the real tokens. So we need to add those. And this is where we're still working on the automatic integration with Backlight, because ideally you would just consume our style dictionary as is, because we're using style dictionary. You can consume style dictionary, so it should theoretically mesh, but we're still working out some kinks there. So what we will do now, I propose, is just copy a big token file into there that we've created with our CLI, which does the same thing. It's just taking the style dictionary and rendering out all those CSS properties. So let me see how I sent you that, because that is super huge.
It's a super huge one.
That should probably be a file that I sent you. Let me see. I mean, let's try. I'll try it in Discord.
Yeah, because the idea...
Okay, he automatically makes a file out of it because the clipboard is too large. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a smart one, you know? So, okay, perfect. Let's see that.
Yeah, you should be able to just copy-paste those tokens into a CSS file in the project.
Yeah, it's a big, big one. So let me just open it right now. Perfect. And I'm gonna copy-paste it right into, tokens.css.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. It's a big one. So let me
And by the way,
import it.
because I've said we don't have media queries anymore, and you just saw media queries there, that's one caveat, because we still have media queries for design tokens. Because stuff like font sizes in our experience are related to the screen size. So a small display needs a smaller font, a big display needs a bigger font. So those are correctly expressed with media queries. Those shouldn't be done in container queries, because otherwise one container would have very small font, the other container very large fonts. It wouldn't look very consistent. So there are those places inside a design system and inside components where you actually want to have global control and where you want to have global settings and breakpoints. This is where we're still using that logic. So when you're using kickstartDS, you can define your own breakpoints, and those are just one input for a style dictionary, and he generates the scaling automatically for you. So if you have 3 breakpoints, you just define them with your rem values, and you get 3 distinct font size values generated for you. If you need 5, you enter 5 and you get 5 generated. So you have 5 different distinctions for example, font size. So it's flexible there too. And that worked. We have a button.
Yeah, and we have a button.
It has colors.
That's perfect. Does it mean that in the future, when the integration will be done, we will be able to, by using style dictionary, generate only the few tokens that we need, depending on the, I don't know, the settings coming from the Figma files containing the different kind of tokens definition? So the idea is to consume them in JSON, I guess so, and just push them directly to style dictionary.
I think you've had Louis on here before from Specify.
Yeah.
We've done a small test with them too, because we have a Figma file. I think you have the link, right? We can have a quick look at that maybe.
Yeah.
We have a Figma file that defines all our tokens, because as I've said, that was the last big refactoring, and we've really invested quite a bit of time into establishing a real semantic structure, because we've seen lots of token usage out there, and mostly it's not really made in a destructured way, in a correctly destructured way. A lot of people are still using, for example, tokens like color red, and that's just not a good practice if you ask us. You should have semantic tokens, and those map to color tokens. Of course, you're using color red anywhere in there in the end, but that should not be the thing a developer interacts with, or someone building a component should interact with. And so if you go to the colors page here, this is pretty much also reusing the specify template in Figma, by the way. We've just added some stuff to it. So what
If
you
we
see
go
here
there-
is we always have those basic scales. For example, here you have the color scales. And those color scales are the base values. Those are not the values you would use in your component. Those are, we sometimes call the artist's palette to design the semantic colors. He will go into here and choose the values he actually wants to use, but he wouldn't use all the 10 different gradients of the primary color. He would pick 2 or 3 and enter them into the semantic categories. So if you go to the right a bit, the next part already is semantic. So this just references the color tokens again, but this is completely semantic. So you have tokens for interface, you have tokens for background, foreground, and those are pretty deeply baked in concepts in kickstartDS. So we know that there's always a front-end color on a background color. That's a main core feature that we support, that those always keep being readable, because you know that something is a background, something is a foreground. You need to have some inverted logic for that. So what you see like accent and accent inverted, it's always pairs for us. It's always primary and primary inverted, because that makes sure that you can invert everything. You can just take a section and invert it, and everything inside it will just propagate. It will just flip in one or the other direction, but it will always work, because the system itself has knowledge about inverting as a concept. That's something we found to be really powerful in use.
Okay, so is it something that is directly inherited from your primary RT palette, or is it something that you have to define too when you are working on the Figma file.
I mean, what you're seeing here is the baseline you get automatically. So this is just when you init your code, your style dictionary in code, that would be the structure you get automatically. You wouldn't have to touch anything here. We also have a small file you can use to parameterize this. So you don't have to input all the values. You have like 15 or 20 values. We call it a branding file or a primitives file. You enter those and just generate your first style dictionary with all those fallbacks and assumptions baked in, so you can work from there and really just change the values that you need changed for yourself.
That's smart.
So you can quickly use it, but you can also customize it. And as I said, you can even go in here and just change the colors in here and sync them with your code, for example, with specify.
Okay, so the idea is that you just have to reuse the kickstartDS Figma file and then be able to generate directly from those files the different definition, going through style dictionary and be ready to consume those tokens directly into your final application, which is ready to use them using their proper names and the correct semantics they are carrying.
Yeah. And you also have those components ready to go. And if you just want to have a super small landing page at the start, you can even click the integration and have the CMS running for you. That's the basic idea, to have it immediately ready to go, but then be able to go into every single decision and see if it works for you and maybe adapt it for the thing you're doing with it, which might be something different.
That's nice. That's really nice. So it's some basics on something more complex, like a multi-brand design system or something like that. Which
this is where this really shines, to be honest. This is
exactly.
We're doing 1 or 2 projects currently where this is one of the main features that's used to be able to quickly generate new white labeled customers in that solution and brand it quickly. Maybe even make a perfunctory branding for a sales pitch. Because it's really easy, it's really low effort to do. You just define some colors, you generate your interface, and you can show it your customer and show it in his own colors already, which is super nice for people building software as a service products that need to be customized for their clients.
Yeah, definitely. And because the kickstartDS is already organized in some different level of dependencies with the core, the base, and so on. You could just reuse the different parts that you already need. Everything is already developed. Just have to reuse and extend them for your very own use at hand.
Exactly, yeah.
That's great. That's really great. Okay.
Quickly looking, because I had one cool link that we could have a look at if I find it again.
You tell me.
Where is it? To put a bow on that design token Figma topic. That would be nice. Where is it? Come on. I know I've shared it.
I'll
have it in a second.
Yeah, for sure we're gonna publish all the links in the final page containing
cool.
all the references. So
having trouble coming up with it, but let me see. There it is. Okay. Take the link, copy the link, paste the link.
you tell me.
Yeah, because we
we
did a super small video for that we posted to Twitter back when we did that proof, and it shows how easy it is, because we just were on that point, how easy it is to switch your token set and how powerful it can be to have that be something different than re-implementing all your interface, just being able to generate some tokens. So when you skip to the end of that, I'm not sure if it will run in the stream. But you see we have a small page in here. It has the layout we've seen currently. You see the inverting too. You can invert everything, even the SVGs invert their color token usage. It's really deep fetching. And then we have a different set, pretty dark set of colors.
Yeah, and you're finally just defining just a small subset of colors to be able to generate your very own palette.
Exactly. And then you just run the CLI and have even hot reload for switching your complete design, which is impressive to me at least.
Yeah, it's really smart.
And this is because the component APIs, the HTML, all that is untouched by this. Because it's just the tokens, the component tokens, and the automatic layering that you get for free when you're using those components. And you can go in there and change this. Maybe we have a quick look at our storybook again, because we have an add-on that we've written for this. So you can see those component tokens actually inside the storybook already.
Yeah, so maybe we could, You show me in the storybook there is kickstartDS storybook.
.com/storybook, correct.
Okay. Opening.
And I think you can just open the button again. It's the easiest one to explain.
So the base one?
Yeah. No, the top one.
The top one, yeah.
Yeah, the customized one.
Okay.
Oh, my camera doesn't want to focus. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so if you just go to that button again, and you have a component tokens tab here.
Yeah.
That's an add-on we've written for Storybook ourselves. So this is done by us. And this just takes all those tokens we've defined and displays them here. And for example, currently we're looking at the C button solid. So if you scroll down in that view, you see there are the variants in there too.
Yeah.
And then you somewhere have the C button solid. You also see that we're using BEM for CSS naming. You could at least see that from here.
Yeah.
So where is the C button solid?
C button solid is probably, no, it's behind it, I guess so. C button clear, C button solid,
Yeah, so
here it is.
For example, what you see here is that's already just a subset of the tokens that every button shares. So that's the layering I was talking about. Every button has some shared attributes that you can define through the button, and it has some layered attributes that are layered because it's a variant of it. So because this is the solid variant, this one gets a different background color, obviously. So because that's solid. And if you scroll up a bit, I think you can, where's the background color? If you just write something into the button solid background color,
Yeah,
you have to go down a bit. This is the clear button.
C button color or
Yeah, but you need the C button solid again.
Oh yeah, I mean clear. You're right. Up and C button background color. Yeah.
Just write anything in there. It can be a static value.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, and this is what we do in the storybook, because what is cool now, if you switch to a different component in here, for example, the visual element
which is just here
in content.
Okay. Yeah.
And you'd be surprised to see that your button is now red here too. So you can quickly verify those small changes directly inside the storybook, because we save those values into your local session and just have a virtual token set for you. That's red when you open the other pages, and you could go into, for example, at the top you have some pages in our storybook. You could verify your complete landing page with this style change before really making it.
There are concepts directly inherited from Pattern Lab, which was exactly that. You're defining atoms and organisms and molecules and so on, and finally you build pages, and you were able to see this cascade of token and properties and dedicated to components going through the overall application.
It's super nice to see how it propagates, right?
Yeah, definitely, because that's really that's the real power of design tokens, you know. Way carrying the different parts of your brand, your different definitions, and being able to just display them and reuse them everywhere overall in your overall application.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I think it's just getting started. Something we've did recently is adding something we call recipes. If you scroll down a bit, I think there are inside there.
Yeah.
So we've seen that people always ask, how can I build cool CTA components, for example?
Yeah.
And then we don't have a CTA element. So should we add a CTA component? We don't think so, because we have a lot of components that can be used to build a CTA. This is what we're trying with the recipes. Those are just some different inspirations on how to use the existing components to get different layouts, different variations of it. But at the core, it's the same components shown before, just parameterized for a specific outcome.
That's in terms of documentation, that's really nice, because this is something that is often missing, We're just looking, so, hey, what is the best way to do X or Y, and suddenly being able to you don't have a dedicated component to do this specific part, but we could show you how to use it to produce this final result.
Yeah. And we get compared to Tailwind, or at least sometimes compared to Tailwind UI, for example, and they have a really rich section of examples that they show. But it's a bit disingenuous if you're talking about the design system, because those are not the same components. Those are just very different collections of HTML attributes. Those don't share a component API, those don't share the same fields. It's a completely different thing, but we see the need to show how broad the use can be if your components are good. And this is why we've started creating these recipes, because it closes the gap a bit.
That's really great. So we're touching to the end of the session, but I have a last question for you. What's the future of kickstartDS for you? What do you have in mind with it?
Hopefully help a lot of digital teams to create better products today. And that's, on the one hand, better products in quality, so more accessible, more performant, because especially accessibility is unfortunately still an afterthought, I think, for lots of people. And who can blame them? They don't get the time to implement good solutions for that. They don't have the budget to do it in the right way. So we really hope to be able to be a small part of the solution in that, to have a pre-processed, pre-produced component set that just helps you make your job easier and really help you focus on the stuff that you want to do. Because, I mean, you're a designer too, I think, right? Do you like designing buttons? Is that revolutionary? Is that fulfilling? I can't believe that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's great.
So the best case would be lots of people using this and having real value generated by it. That would be the goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there something that you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think I have we were just on an event. I think I have a sticker here, a button. Feedback, please. So if anyone has feedback, reach out. We're super interested. We're pretty early on too. We're in the startup phase, more or less. We have pilot customers. We're testing this with really interesting projects. It's not some small throwaway projects. It's some really substantial projects too. So if you have a project that would benefit from this, when you see some synergies here, just hit me up. I think we can work something out.
Awesome. We passed the word, but I'm sure you're going to have a ton of feedback and a lot of really nice things, because there is a lot of work inside kickstartDS right now, and it's definitely paving the way to something that is coming next after, as we say, the themable components libraries.
I think so,
it's definitely more advanced, and this is what people we're gonna have a look in the future to improve the way they're building applications. So
at least I hope so, because I'm really not, as a developer and as a frontend developer for almost 20 years, I'm really not satisfied with Tailwind and Emotion and those concepts if you want to build long-lasting big projects. If you're just building small throwaway projects, it's perfectly fine. I'd say it's the correct way to do it even. But if you're building something that should have value for 3, 4, 5 years, you shouldn't build it on that basis, at least to me.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Awesome. This is the end. So thank you very much for being with me today. It was really
thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure, and it was really insightful on how powerful kickstartDS is, and we could help you to build your final design system for your final application. So thank you very much for that. And see you next week, folks, for the last episode for the season with Brad Frost. So it will be a nice one to close this season. And thank you again for being with me today, and see you later. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.